So the Huff Post the Huff Post is a Pulitzer Prize winning organisation. We started 11 years ago, launched by Ariana and a few other people. Actually, some of them now run BuzzFeed. Launched 11 years ago in New York, and it started off primarily as a place for people to blog, an open platform for them to blog about issues that they're really passionate about. And like a lot of things in digital, it's transformed into a global company. We launched Mexico last week. We've got 15 other global editions around the world, all the big five in Europe, the UK, Japan, Korea, Australia. And so we kind of think of it as a global journalism network on one side, and on the other side, a platform for people to offer their opinions. And we've got about 700 paid journalists working around the world, creating original content, not just written work, but video, and just promoting the brand of the Huffington Post and the issues that we really care about.
And I think, especially coming from the PRCA census, that tech and healthcare are coming up quite big. Have you got plans to develop that side?
Yeah, very, very much so, actually. So the way that the team's organised is I've got 40 journalists who work for me in the UK, ranging from, I think I'm actually the second oldest, so it's quite a young team. The oldest being Paul Bohr, who's our political editor, and if you're into politics, you might know him from Twitter and what have you, and radio and TV, and I think he's still under 50, so it's a really, really young team. And they're split into 4 departments, so primarily politics, news, entertainment, and what we call life. And life consists of lifestyle, style content, parenting, and tech. And our take on tech really reflects what we do at the Huffington Post generally, and we call it what's working. We try to look for solutions to some of the issues in the world rather than just obsess about problems. And we noticed that, maybe you guys do as well, working in PR, that there is an obsession about finding the bad story from a lot of mainstream media. A good example is the plastic bag charge that you now pay. Well, actually, you paid it a lot longer up here, haven't you? But in England, because we're a bit behind the times, we only introduced it last year, so we now pay 5p for every time we want to use a plastic bag. And that was kind of spun in the Mail and a lot of the other newspapers as being a really bad thing. And as they said, it was a bureaucratic madness, and the bureaucrats and pen pushers had won. And we just didn't buy that, because that money is used to reduce waste, and it goes into charities as well. And we just felt that that was our job to highlight that as a good solution to a problem. And so that's really what the what's working mentality that we have, and we go across the globe with that. So all our 15 editions and all the 15 editors-in-chief around the world really focus on trying to find solutions rather than problems. And the way, tying back to your question, the way that the tech and the health sector works for us is we look at tech rather than looking at how, the number of megabytes or whatever it is in your iPhone. I don't know anything about tech, and I'm not interested in.
That's why you're not on the tech panel.
Yeah, it's not really about the geeky side of the product. It's more about how that piece of tech can enhance your life and change what you do. So for parenting, what are the kind of the apps or the technology that can help your kids sleep, or how you can help find better sleeping patterns for them. And that's we call it Tech for Life, and we also had a series which we launched last week called Tech for Good, looking at how tech is actually improving your life and enhancing the way you want to live, rather than here's a great new game that where you can shoot 25 people in a second. That's not really our take on it.
Innovation, Huffington Post is regarded for being innovative, and by the very nature of the speed that tech is growing at, how do you in the Huffington Post plan to keep evolving with that and to stay fresh as well?
It's really tough, and I'm sure you guys have the same issues. This business is permanently changing or innovating, and I think I was just chatting to somebody about it before this, and my whole gig is to, as editor-in-chief, and I say to myself and my team all the time, my job is to make you guys look good, and we're going to look good if we're constantly reinventing what we do. So what we started doing 11 years ago, or what the Huff Post started doing 11 years ago, is completely different to what we do now. Social media didn't really exist. It was more of an SEO-led thing about getting big traffic. And so for us, innovation is just about accepting, as people who work there, that this thing is going to evolve and change all the time. And if we can diversify at speed and be up, and be ahead of the curve on a lot of these things, we are innovating, and that's really important. And it's quite often just really subtle things. It might just be, For me, I've just learned how to use Snapchat, for example, and I've been putting silly things up on it all day. But that is in itself quite innovative, especially for a lot of journalists who've maybe started off writing. Trying to express yourself in a completely different way is scary, but actually people seem to like it. So that's the philosophy that we have the entire time. In terms of content that we're creating, I think we're innovating in a way that we're trying to reinvent how we look at video. I think video is going to be it is already the big thing. It's going to be even bigger in the next couple of years. We've hired seven specialists. The last one just started last week to help us express what we want to talk about in a video format as well. So while we're one of the world's biggest publishers of word-driven journalism, we want to get in the market of writing, of producing video. We actually bought a 360 video company I think it's about a month ago, called Riot, RYOT, and the reason why we were interested in them is they're a really kind of ethical company. They start off as charity workers, actually going to war zones and earthquake areas, and they wanted to tell the stories of the situations there in a visual way. And we kind of got that, and Ariana, really purpose-driven. I think some of the points, I can't see Sarah, but some of the points she was making earlier on about having a purpose, I think, we're a publisher with a purpose, and it's not just about getting loads of clicks on a website on any story that's going that day. It's really about having a core that we write about.
So that leads nicely into the next question, which is how can PR practitioners work with the likes of the Huffington Post?
Yeah, so I get asked this an awful lot. So in my editorship time, there's a couple of things I really wanted to push. It's about diversity, and that's kind of a toxic word in some ways, because whenever I mention that to a room full of middle-aged white blokes, they get very upset because they say, hang on, we're all thinking different things. So diversity isn't just what you look like or where you're from. So I think that's really important. But for us, it's really getting the female voice out. I work for one of the world's most powerful media women, and I've got some of the most fiery women in media beneath me as well, and they keep me honest all the time. So and it's about raising the issues that they really care about. The other strand is I want to talk about the issues that face men. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 45, bigger than cancer and anything like that. It's incredibly untrendy to talk about. And right now I'm trying to get I'm very close to getting a very high-profile male to guest edit the Huffington Post in November when we do our Men's Month to talk about suicide. And more broadly, the issue of mental health, again, something which is really mainstream, or becoming very mainstream now. We worked with the Duchess of Cambridge, and she guest edited the site for a day. And that's kind of the purpose that really drives us, is that we want to get that issue out there and talk about how young people are educated about mental health, how they can talk about it openly, and it's not stigmatized. And we found that the Duchess was a good person to work with, and I didn't quite realise how crazy that campaign would go, because it went, she's very well known around the world, and I found myself sitting on Good Morning America being questioned by people, which I never expected. So, but those are the issues that we care about, and I think if you know that, which you do now, those, if you're coming to me saying I want to talk about these issues too, then we're going to listen. If it's I want to flog you a piece of research on uses of iPhones, it's just not what we're about. And
I think you missed it this morning, but we had a session on PR for social good, which was very much looking at about what campaigns we were working on and how that actually impacted in people's lives, rather than just always trying to push something, which is not the way that PR works. It maybe used to back in the day, but it's certainly progressed on quite significantly from then.
Unilever, Paul Pullman is brilliant at that. He gets the idea of purpose, and it's for workers as well. People who work in these companies want to be driven by something other than let's just hit a number, let's do that, and let's go to the pub and get boozed up or whatever. People get up in the morning to do something, and they're motivated. And I think, especially with the dreaded word, the millennials, they're really purpose-driven. And as an editor, if I'm just getting them to write stuff because I think it's going to get big loads of hits, that's a kind of a dangerous way to go. So all the guys who work for me get that sense of purpose, and they buy into the issues that I care about. And I think that's how we make a difference. And I hope that's why some people like the Huffington Post.
one of the questions that we had in from Rob Bruce, who's actually joining our digital PR panel tomorrow, said, in your opinion, what is the next big thing that will fundamentally change how we receive and digest information? And how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Next.
Yeah, well, I mentioned the Reuters report. They do this every year. So in 2012, they did the report, and they said that smartphones were starting to become a bit of a thing. We should probably look at smartphones, and tablets were the future. Smartphones have rocketed. That's how people engage with our content. And tablets aren't. They're really quite low down, and I think it's about 15% of readers access us through a tablet. So it's a kind of a dangerous game to predict what's going to happen before it's even happened. But I think the skill is to be nimble enough to understand that if you want to get in the market with something, Snapchat for us at the minute, we'll experiment and we'll try things. And I think digital is sometimes, for me anyway, it's a byword for just trying stuff. You can and you should be experimenting, and you should be failing and moving on from it. So
80-20 rule.
Hey?
80-20.
Yeah, yes, it is actually. No, I might rebrand that and write a book and become a hero as well.
What has been the most successful brand campaign? What's added real value to your readers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it has to be the Duchess of Cambridge's campaign that we did with her. We called it Young Minds Matter. I think it was number one on Twitter. It was a story that went around the world, had thousands and thousands of pieces of content about it, and it's important. One, because of the coverage that we got, but two, it's because it was really strategic and it's something that we cared about, and we were able to work with somebody who cared about it as well. So I think, I don't know if that's put us on the map, but in the UK, but it's certainly just something I just thought, yeah, that's when I'm gone and forgotten about, that's the one thing I'll really be proud of.
One last question before we come on to some questions from the audience. There's some very kind student helpers here today, and
I know where this one's going.
No. No. What piece of advice would you maybe give to them to motivate them, inspire them to maybe move into the world of fast news and real core content that people value?
Yeah, I think so. When I recruit people, I don't know who I'm talking to in here. If the guys, yeah. Hello. So when I'm recruiting, and I don't know if this is the same with everyone how they recruit. I look for very few things in a way. I look for enthusiasm and I look for initiative. If you can show me that you've made an effort and you've worked elsewhere and you've written things and you know my brand inside out, that actually counts so much to me. And enthusiasm, you can't teach that, and that you can't. I've found in the 20 odd years I've been doing this job is that you can't change anybody, and if people don't want to change, you can't do much with them. But if people are willing, if change is part of their DNA, then you can do anything, and you can have great fun and achieve amazing things. And I think it's just having that sense of I'm up for this. I'll take what's coming at me, and that's the enthusiasm I always look for. And yeah, and you find it a lot. You find it in all age generations. So it's not an age specific thing, but that's probably my key bit of advice is just come with an open mind. Know that what you're doing today might not be what you're doing tomorrow, and you'll probably be better for it.
How interested are you in religious diversity and what's currently happening with the narrative on Islam?
Yeah. So do you know Mehdi Hassan? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's a good buddy of mine. He used to work at the Huffington Post. So we did a project last year called Beyond Belief, and we wanted to talk kind of about that thing, which was there's a lot of people who are very passionate about their religion, Islam, Christians, all sorts of things, but they do have some fundamental issues with the core of what they are, and we wanted to find those people and talk about how they'd taken on their own religion and just tried to change it. So we had Vicky Beeching, who's a very famous Christian, but also came out as being gay. And we did a great interview with her and how she's taken on the church. We also spoke to the one of the name, I can't remember his name now, but he was he's one of the Islamic preachers for the British Army. Again, a really kind of paradoxical role in a way. And we just wanted to highlight that you can have these really strong beliefs, but you can also disagree with your religion. And we try to elevate it through this series called Beyond Belief. Thank you.
There was another, oh, yes, just behind you there.
Hi, so I work at a charity, a Scottish charity, and I've worked in the third sector here before. And one of the challenges I find, I think, is working on, I think you'll have heard this before, but Scotland can be different, and our point of view on things can sometimes be different. And I guess I'm just interested as how, as a Scottish charity, do we find our place in like a UK-wide media channel? And I'm sure it's an issue for, regions all over the UK. How do we, because I love the Huffington Post, but I think a lot of national media channels can be quite London-centric. And what advice do you have for kind of finding a regional place in those channels, I guess? Thank you.
You're right. All my team in the UK are in London. They're not all from London, but we're mainly focused around the area. And actually, every time you leave London, you realise what a weird place it is to live in. I think, so I'll take that on as, I should probably have some more people in Scotland. So maybe I'll go back to the office and work out my budget and see if I can do that for a start. So that's a good one. I think it comes down to the fundamental thing. It's not really about where you are. It's what the story you've got to tell. And if it's for me, if it's a story about the issues that men or women face, and particularly in terms of mental health, I'm going to listen to that wherever it is. You'll probably get lots of coverage next week when Mr. Trump comes. I don't know if that's the kind of coverage you want in Scotland. But I think it does boil down to what is your product and what have you got. And I don't. Yeah, but apart from the fact that I'm based in London and I've clearly got things that I need to sort out with my team, if you're telling a story which translates around the country and actually more helpfully around the world, which is kind of issue-led rather than trying to promote a local cause, I think that's, people get those stories. My colleagues in Korea get those stories regularly, and then they love them, and they tell those stories in their country and in their language. So I think it's more the issue that you're pushing rather than the location of where it's happened.
Hi, Richard Smith, Public Relations Manager in Scotland for the Lifeboats charity. Stephen, I'm interested in what you were saying about suicide amongst men. The RNLI is going to do some work with the Samaritans to look at mental health. There are numerous hotspots around Scotland's coastline where the lifeboats are called out to deal with people in distress. There is one particular hotspot which is leading to a rash of journalistic hyperbole on occasions. And I think my plea is whether the journalists will take a more responsible attitude towards reporting people who've got mental health. There's a road bridge on the River Tay, and the lifeboats go out there every year, every month, perhaps 20 times in a year, where there are men who are in distress, and unfortunately, most of them lose their lives. At the weekend, there was such an incident. I'm a former journalist, and some of the reporting was very over the top, in that the local paper had 3 pages devoted to the search. And in my mind, this was just exasperating the problem and would encourage other men, perhaps, who have difficulties to go there, but also attract people who are seeking attention. And the story just ran and ran over 3 pages on a morning paper on Monday. It also ran in the evening paper. And, what do we do in that sort of situation?
Yeah, I can completely. I know where you're coming from, and it would be nice to chat afterwards about maybe how we can cover that in a different way. And I'm kind of always a little bit cautious to knock other media and make a political point out of things. But there are standards that journalists do have when covering suicide, and it's honestly a really tricky situation. But I don't want to get into the thing of knocking another product's output. But maybe a better way is that we can work together and find a way of covering it in a way which does actually cut the number of times that boat has to go out. That for me would be a a what's working solution rather than trying to change the fundamental way that the media works, if you're up for it.
Hello, hi. Can you explain how the process works if somebody comes to you with an idea in relation to a pitch for a feature? And could you just give an insight into that whole process?
Yeah, so we're slightly differently structured from some other organisations. So there's two sides to it. I really want to be really clear about this because it does get muddled up sometimes. So there's two sides. There's a journalistic side, and that's a paid journalist. They work for AOL, Verizon, Huffington Post, and there's 40 of them in the UK. I think about 70-odd% are women and about 30-odd% are men. So maybe ticks. I am totally discriminating. You can't win. And that commissioning process is quite in-house. So the heads of the 4 departments I described before will be talking to people externally and also in the team about ideas. And again, without boring on about it too much, we kind of know what we're about. We want to talk about solutions, not problems. We want to talk about issues, not products necessarily. And so if you've got a good understanding of that, you can email those guys or call them or you'll work them for years and see what you can get out of them. We don't take press trips, by the way. We don't go overseas and do travel features and that kind of thing. No, we shouldn't. It's really again, without sounding too worthy, it's really important that your businesses aren't influencing what goes on our pages. So that's one side of the fully paid journalist side. On the other side, we've got a free platform for people to use, a bit like you use Twitter or Google, or Facebook, and it's a platform for people to contribute to and blog. And we've got 14,000 people who blog in the UK. I think Ariana's dream is to have 1 million people globally, which is a good big ambition from Ariana, which is good. And that's really free for anyone to write what they want. And most of the people who write on that platform aren't professional writers. It might be, I think we've got Jeremy Corbyn today and Michael Sheen, who's writing for UNICEF about the plight of Syrian refugees. It's people who just like writing and do what they do. And we kind of see it the same way as you would contribute to Twitter or Facebook, or in fact, sitting here and contributing to your event. It's open to you, and that's the best way to use it. And the two are really, really very different. It's, we do pay 40 writers in the UK and hundreds around the world. And on the other side, we've got a contributing platform, which, a lot of people have worked on that and got jobs out of it and written books and got TV shows. And they do it because they want to connect and tell their stories.
Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Taylor, the other person from the south, wanting to watch the England game. 14,000 bloggers in the UK. How on earth do you exercise editorial control?
Well, we don't have any editorial control. It's an open platform for them to write. So the way it works is, and I know what you're going to ask, is we won't tolerate racism, homophobia, that kind of thing. And so
how do you protect the brand?
Yeah, so those blogs are submitted. There's a process whereby we have 3 blog editors in the UK, and they will read all those blogs. It's a really tough job because there's a lot of work coming in every day, and they will go through them. We don't change headlines. We won't change copy. If we see a typo, we might change that. And believe it or not, there's the odd typo in things. But if there's things that are legally sensitive, just discriminatory, or just offensive, they don't appear on the pages. And I honestly don't think I can think of a time, maybe one time when there was a legal issue, and if there is a problem, then and it's identified. That's like top priority. Let's get this sorted straight away. And it's hard because you are dealing with people who are really passionate about certain issues, and you don't want to upset them by saying this is unacceptable. But we do kind of exercise the right to not publish those if they just offensive. But most of them aren't. Most of them are just people who want to talk about useful things and stick to that kind of solutions-based philosophy, which we're really, really focused on.
If someone really good appears on a blog you receive, do you promote that on your own social media feeds as well?
Yeah, I do. I mean, again, it can be. I had a guy on my team, Daniel, who he joined the team. It turns out my auntie used to be his teacher at school, which was quite weird. He did a blog yesterday about the Orlando shootings, which was just phenomenal, and I tweeted that, and I'll do that quite often with anybody. If it's a good blog, I'll tweet it. There's no agenda as to why or anything like that.
Oh, we've got time. Yeah, just two more then. There's Ella and you at the back as well. Oh, we'll come back to you, Ella.
Hi, I was just wondering what, for you, it's like in terms of where you get your content from. Do you, are you completely bombarded and overwhelmed by millions of emails from PR people on a daily basis, and you're like, sifting through it and wondering what the hell to cover? Or do you spend, or does your team spend the majority of their time out pounding the streets, sort of finding stories, and how does that balance that content?
Yeah, so it's again, without fudging it, it's probably a bit of both. I mean, you literally do get bombarded with emails. I think I've got 50,000 unread ones in my inbox at the minute. You can't keep up with them, and you can't answer everything, and you don't want to answer everything because some of the emails are just, not right. And I think any journalist, if they're sitting looking at an inbox waiting for stories to come in, is probably not doing their job properly. So we do send people out all the time. Actually, a lot more the video team, because they just need to get out and meet people and actually get the footage. And we're doing a lot with Facebook Live at the moment. We had Gordon Ramsay on yesterday, and that's a great way to get out and meet people and to find out what the stories are. There was an event in London on Monday night, I think it was, the Soho Vigil. I don't know if you saw the pictures of it. It's just incredible. There's thousands of people, covering Soho. We sent the team down there. We had over 1 million views of that video on Facebook Live, and that's a good example of the team just going out and actually talking to normal people about what they felt about that issue and spreading that story. So it's probably more getting people out and finding their own stories and less emails. Emails is it's a really hard way to meet people anyway. And I always say to PRs, and I do it myself, the Duchess of Cambridge didn't just fall in our lap and we said, oh yeah, we'll work with you. That kind of contact takes a long time, and you have to build the trust with people, and they have to know that you're real and you're authentic and you believe what you're talking about, because they can smell a rat a mile away.
That's all we've got time for just now from Stephen, because he has to go, unfortunately. But thank you very much, and thank you all for your questions as well.